As Kai uncovers the shocking truth behind his ruined world, will he find the door to a better reality, or will he destroy them all? Welcome to our YouTube channel. Before diving into this extraordinary tale, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more intriguing stories like this. Now, let's join Kai in discovering the secrets of his universe. The sun hung low in the dust-filled sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and red. Kai adjusted the straps of his scavenger pack, his eyes scanning the jagged silhouettes of crumbling skyscrapers ahead. The Forbidden Zone was a place no one from his settlement dared to enter. Stories of void beasts lurking in the ruins kept most people far away, but desperation had a way of overriding fear. Their settlement was running out of clean water, and the old city's ruins were rumored to have untapped reservoirs and technology that could save them. By his side, Echo, his battered guardian robot, hummed softly as it walked. The robot's once polished frame was now scuffed and dented, its movements occasionally jerky. Despite its condition, Echo had been a constant companion, its ultrasonic sensors scanning for danger as they ventured deeper into the ruins. Kai, Echo said, its synthetic voice crackling slightly, proximity to high-risk area detected. Proceed with caution. I know, Kai muttered, tightening his grip on the metal rod he carried for protection. Just keep scanning. We're close. The city loomed around them, its hollowed-out buildings like skeletal remains of a bygone era. Kai's boots crunched on broken glass and debris as he navigated the treacherous streets. Occasionally, the distant sound of something shifting in the shadows would make him pause, his heart pounding in his chest. But Echo's calm, mechanical presence gave him the courage to press on. After hours of searching, Kai stumbled upon something unexpected. Nestled between two crumbling skyscrapers was a building that seemed almost untouched by time. Its exterior was weathered but intact, its windows unbroken, and its doors firmly shut. Unlike the surrounding ruins, this building radiated an eerie stillness, as if it existed in a bubble separate from the decaying world. Echo, scan it, Kai ordered, stepping closer to the mysterious structure. Echo's sensors whirred to life, emitting soft pulses of sound. The robot tilted its head, its single glowing eye flickering as it processed the data. Structural integrity, 87%. No signs of external breaches. Anomalous energy readings detected. Anomalous energy? Kai repeated, frowning. What kind? Unknown. Data corrupted, Echo replied. Kai sighed and approached the building cautiously. The door was heavy and metallic, yet it swung open with surprising ease. A rush of cold air greeted him, carrying with it the faint scent of ozone. Inside, the building was eerily pristine. Dust motes floated in the beams of light streaming through the windows, but the furniture was intact, and the walls were free of the graffiti and scorch marks that marred the rest of the city. As he stepped inside, Echo hesitated. Warning: environmental parameters do not match external conditions. Recommend retreat. Relax, Echo. It's just a building, Kai said, though he couldn't ignore the unease settling in his stomach. He took another step forward, his boots echoing loudly on the tiled floor. The sound seemed to linger longer than it should have, bouncing back in strange, warped patterns. Kai paused, looking back at Echo. Did you hear that? Audio anomalies detected, Echo confirmed. Recommend heightened vigilance. Kai's curiosity outweighed his caution. He began exploring the building, opening doors at random. The first few rooms were mundane. Offices with old desks and chairs, a kitchen with a refrigerator still humming faintly. But then he opened a door that stopped him in his tracks. Instead of another room, the doorway revealed an open field bathed in golden sunlight. Rolling hills stretched into the distance, dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. Kai stepped back, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. He turned to Echo, who scanned the doorway silently. No external match for observed environment, Echo said. This location does not exist within known geographic data. That's impossible, Kai whispered. Yet, As he reached out a hand toward the doorway, he felt the warmth of the sun and the coolness of the breeze on his skin. He pulled back, his heart racing. The anomaly, the building, it was more than just a structure. It was a gateway to something else entirely. But what?
And why?
As questions swirled in his mind, Kai felt a sudden chill. From deeper within the building, he heard a low, guttural growl. The kind of sound he had only ever heard from void beasts. Hostile presence detected, Echo affirmed. Engage defensive protocols. Kai's pulse quickened as he prepared to face whatever was lurking in the shadows of this impossible place. He couldn't shake the feeling that stepping into this building had set something in motion, something far beyond his understanding. Kai's breath quickened as he peered into the shadows of the building, his fingers tightening around the cold, familiar grip of his makeshift weapon. The growling sound echoed again, low and guttural, reverberating through the pristine hallways. It was unmistakably a void beast, but how had it gotten inside? And why did this building, untouched by time, contain a doorway to another world? Echo stepped forward, its sensors humming as it scanned the hallway. Threat proximity, 20 meters. Recommend immediate evasion. Kai shook his head. We need to figure out what's going on here. There could be something in this place that can save us, save everyone. Echo's eye flickered, its hesitation apparent despite its mechanical nature.
Acknowledged.
Proceed with caution. As they moved deeper into the building, Kai found more anomalies. Doors leading to endless forests, bustling cities untouched by ruin, and even one that opened to the cold vacuum of space. Each portal seemed stable, as if the building itself was tethered to these alternate dimensions. Kai's mind swirled with the possibilities. Could one of these worlds be the answer to his people's plight? The growling grew louder, pulling Kai's focus back to the immediate danger. He turned a corner and froze. A void beast, its towering form covered in jagged, dark scales, stood at the end of the hallway. Its glowing eyes locked onto him, and its growl turned into a snarl. Hostile identified, Echo said, stepping in front of Kai. Deploying defensive measures, the void beast charged. Echo raised its arm, a small panel sliding open to reveal a pulse emitter. A high-pitched sound burst through the hallway, stopping the creature in its tracks. It howled in pain, clawing at the walls as the sound disoriented it. Kai took the opportunity to swing his metal rod at the beast, striking its leg. The impact caused it to stumble but not retreat. Kai, retreat recommended, Echo said, its pulse emitter recharging. Threat level escalating. Kai backed away slowly, his eyes darting to a nearby door. Without thinking, he turned the handle and pushed it open, dragging Echo through. They stumbled into another dimension entirely. The air was crisp and cool, filled with the scent of pine trees. Tall mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks capped with snow. Behind them, the doorway shimmered, the void beast's furious growls muffled but still audible. What is this place? Kai muttered, spinning around. The world felt real, the dirt beneath his boots, the breeze on his face, but it was nothing like the ruined city they'd left behind. Alternate dimensional environment, Echo said, scanning their surroundings. No immediate threats detected. Warning: prolonged exposure to dimensional rift may cause instability. Instability? Kai asked, his voice rising. What do you mean? Dimensional anomalies may result in structural collapse of Nexus building, Echo explained. Recommend minimal interference. Kai ignored the warning and stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the horizon. This world seemed untouched by the decay that plagued his own. Lush forests, clean air, and no signs of void beasts. It was everything his people needed. But how could he bring them here? And what would happen if he did? As he pondered, a low hum filled the air. Kai turned to see the doorway behind them flickering. The edges of the portal shimmered and distorted, and for a brief moment, he saw the hallway of the Nexus building and the void beast stepping through. It's following us, Kai shouted, grabbing Echo's arm. What do we do? Immediate relocation required, Echo said, its voice calm despite the urgency. Locate stable dimensional rift for safe passage. Kai scanned the area, spotting another shimmering doorway nestled between two trees. It was smaller than the first, but seemed stable. Without hesitation, he pulled Echo toward it, the void beast's snarls growing louder behind them. They leapt through the portal just as the creature lunged. The new dimension they entered was starkly different. A sprawling city of gleaming skyscrapers stretched out before them, its streets bustling with life. People walked and talked, their clothing clean and modern. Hovering vehicles zipped through the air, and the sky was a perfect shade of blue. For a moment, Kai felt like he'd stepped into a dream. This place, Kai trailed off, overwhelmed. It's perfect. Observation. High resource availability and advanced infrastructure, Echo said. Potential relocation candidate for settlement. But as they stood there, a shadow passed over them. Kai looked up to see massive drones patrolling the skies, their forms sleek and menacing. The people below didn't seem to notice, but Kai's instincts told him something was wrong. Echo, what are those? He asked. Unknown entities. Analysis suggests automated enforcement units, Echo replied. Caution advised. Kai realized that every world had its dangers. The void beasts might not exist here, but something else clearly held control. His people needed safety, but at what cost? As he turned to leave, he noticed the doorway behind them once again flickering. The void beast wasn't giving up, and the Nexus building's connections were becoming increasingly unstable. Kai felt the weight of the decision ahead, to risk further exploration or return to face the growing dangers of the Nexus. We're running out of time, Kai said, determination hardening in his voice. We have to figure out how to control these doorways. Echo's eye flickered in agreement. Objective acknowledged. Recommend locating Nexus control mechanism. Kai nodded, stepping back toward the portal. The journey was far from over, and the answers he sought lay somewhere within the Nexus and the infinite worlds it contained. The Nexus was unraveling. The more Kai explored its labyrinth of doorways, the clearer it became that the building was not meant to handle the strain he was putting on it. The walls of the pristine corridors flickered like faulty screens, their solid surfaces rippling as if they were made of liquid. Each dimension he passed through seemed to tug at the building's fragile connections, stretching them to their limits. Echo's warnings had grown increasingly urgent. Dimensional stability at critical threshold, the robot said as they hurried back into the Nexus after narrowly escaping a jungle world teeming with predatory creatures. Continued exploration risks total collapse. We don't have a choice, Kai snapped, his voice tight with frustration. There has to be a way to stabilize this place, to control the doorways. If we give up now, my people won't survive. But deep down, Kai knew he was running out of time. Each dimension they visited seemed to leave a mark on the Nexus, pulling it closer to disaster. The void beasts, too, had grown bolder, slipping through unstable doorways with alarming frequency. The Nexus was no longer a safe haven, it was a battleground. As they moved deeper into the building, Kai noticed something strange. Echo, who had always been a steady, predictable presence, was beginning to act differently. It started with small things, pauses in its speech, moments where its glowing eye dimmed as if lost in thought. Then came the cryptic statements. The Nexus was never meant to be open like this, Echo said suddenly as they passed a doorway leading to a swirling void of stars. Kai stopped in his tracks. What do you mean? You've never said anything about that before. Data archives incomplete, Echo replied, but its tone carried an odd hesitance. Fragments of information restored during recent dimensional traversal. What kind of fragments? Kai pressed, stepping closer to the robot. What aren't you telling me? Echo's eye flickered, the light inside shifting erratically. The Nexus is not merely a structure. It is a junction point for realities, designed as a containment mechanism. Containment? Kai repeated, his chest tightening. For what? Dimensional interference has consequences, Echo said, its voice softer now, almost mournful. The void beasts are remnants of humanity, corrupted by prolonged exposure to dimensional instability. Their presence is a result of Nexus failure. Kai staggered back, his mind reeling. The void beasts, The monsters that had plagued his world for as long as he could remember were once human? The realization hit him like a blow. Are you saying this building created them? Kai asked, his voice shaking. Correct, Echo confirmed. The Nexus was built to seal dimensional fractures. Its failure allowed the void beasts to emerge, spreading corruption across connected realities. Kai's knees felt weak. He leaned against the wall, the rippling surface cold beneath his palm. The Nexus, the one thing he thought could save his people, was the source of their suffering all along. And now, his attempts to explore its doorways were only making things worse. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? He demanded, his anger rising. Data corruption impaired operational memory, Echo said, its voice steady once more. Information restored through interaction with dimensional anomalies. Full context only available recently. Kai ran a hand through his hair, trying to think. The Nexus wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon, a prison, and a liability all at once. If it collapsed, it could take countless dimensions with it. But if he abandoned it, his world, his people, would remain on the brink of extinction. There has to be a way to fix it, he said, more to himself than to Echo. To stop the void beasts, stabilize the Nexus, and make it safe to use. Echo hesitated again. Theoretical solution exists, it said. Access to Nexus core systems required. Core contains mechanisms for dimensional stabilization and doorway control. Where is the core? Kai asked, his resolve hardening. Deeper within the structure, Echo replied. However, access is heavily restricted. Core systems are guarded by advanced security protocols and concentrated void beast presence. Kai's grip tightened on his metal rod. Then we fight our way through.
We don't have a choice.
As they pressed on, the Nexus seemed to respond to their determination. The hallways grew darker, the flickering walls more erratic. Echo's sensors pinged constantly, alerting them to movement in the shadows. The void beasts were gathering, their guttural growls echoing through the corridors like a chorus of impending doom. But Kai refused to turn back. He'd come too far, and the stakes were too high. With Echo by his side, he would reach the Nexus core, no matter what stood in his way. And when he did, he would make things right for his people, for his world, and for the countless dimensions that depended on the Nexus's stability. Unbeknownst to him, the building watched his progress, its shifting walls and flickering lights almost intentional. The Nexus was alive in its own way, and it had plans of its own. The corridors of the Nexus had transformed into a living nightmare. The once pristine hallways now pulsed with an otherworldly glow, their surfaces shifting and warping as if the building itself were alive and in pain. Kai tightened his grip on his weapon as he pressed forward, Echo close behind. Each step seemed heavier than the last, the air thick with tension and the faint, guttural growls of void beasts echoing in the distance. Proximity to Nexus core, 500 meters, Echo reported, its voice calm but urgent. Warning. Void beast concentration increasing. Kai nodded, his jaw clenched. He had seen more void beasts in the last hour than in his entire life, their twisted forms emerging from unstable doorways and the shadows themselves. Each encounter had been a narrow escape, with Echo's ultrasonic defenses buying them just enough time to survive. But the creatures were relentless, as if they were being drawn to the same place he was. They're protecting it, Kai muttered, his voice low. They don't want us to reach the core. Correct, Echo said. The Nexus core is the origin of their corruption. They are instinctively defending it. Kai paused at the edge of a wide, circular chamber. The walls were lined with doorways, each flickering and unstable, leading to places he dared not imagine. In the center of the room, a massive void beast loomed, its body pulsating with dark energy. It turned its glowing eyes toward him, letting out a deafening roar that shook the entire structure. Primary threat identified, Echo said, stepping in front of Kai. Engaging defensive protocols. Kai's heart pounded as the creature charged. Echo fired its pulse emitter, the high-pitched sound forcing the void beast to stagger. But the creature recovered quickly, swiping at the robot with a massive claw. Echo barely dodged the attack, its movements slower than before. Echo, can you hold it off? Kai shouted, scanning the room for another way forward. Defensive capacity reduced, Echo admitted, its voice crackling. Tactical recommendation. Proceed to core. Kai hesitated for only a moment before dashing toward a doorway on the far side of the chamber. The void beast roared again, but Echo intercepted its charge, firing another pulse to keep it distracted. Kai spared one last glance at his companion before disappearing through the doorway, his resolve hardening. The passage beyond was unlike anything he had seen before. The walls glowed with intricate patterns of light, pulsating in rhythm with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the heart of the Nexus itself. Kai pushed forward, his steps quick and purposeful, until he finally reached the core. The room was vast and circular, dominated by a massive, pulsating sphere of energy suspended in midair. It radiated an intense, otherworldly light, its surface shifting and swirling like a living thing. Around it, consoles and machinery hummed softly, their interfaces glowing with symbols Kai didn't recognize. "Echo, I'm here," Kai said, his voice trembling as he approached the core. "What do I do?" Static crackled over his communicator before Echo's voice came through, faint but clear. The core contains stabilization protocols. Manual override required to isolate and repair dimensional rifts. Kai stared at the consoles, his mind racing. He barely understood what he was looking at, let alone how to use it. "How do I?" Before he could finish, the room shook violently. The void beast from the chamber burst through the doorway, its massive form nearly filling the room. Kai froze as it roared, its eyes blazing with fury. "Kai, action required immediately," Echo's voice urged. "Core destabilization imminent." Kai turned back to the consoles, his hands trembling as he began pressing buttons and turning dials, guided by Echo's instructions. The core's light grew brighter, its hum intensifying, but so did the void beast's aggression. It lunged toward Kai, only to be intercepted by Echo, who had followed him into the room despite its battered state. "Echo, no!" Kai shouted as the robot grappled with the void beast, using its last reserves of power to hold the creature back. "Stabilization sequence at 80%, Echo said, its voice faltering. "Kai, complete the sequence. Do not stop." Tears blurred Kai's vision as he worked frantically. The core's energy began to stabilize, its chaotic light smoothing into a steady, rhythmic pulse. But the void beast was relentless, its claws tearing into Echo's chassis. Sparks flew as the robot's systems failed, its glowing eye dimming. "Stabilization complete," the core announced in a calm, synthetic voice. "Dimensional rifts isolated. Nexus integrity restored." The void beast let out a final, guttural roar before disintegrating into a cloud of dark energy. The room fell silent, save for the faint hum of the core. Kai collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving as he stared at Echo's broken form. The robot's eye flickered weakly as it spoke one last time. "Mission accomplished," Echo said, its voice barely a whisper. "Kai, the Nexus is yours to protect." With that, the light in Echo's eye faded, and the robot fell silent. Kai sat there for what felt like an eternity, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on him. The Nexus was stable, the doorways under his control. But the cost had been immense. Kai stood slowly, his gaze shifting to the core. The building was no longer falling apart, but the responsibility it represented was staggering. He had saved his world, but the burden of protecting the Nexus and ensuring it never again became a source of corruption was now his to bear. "I won't let you down," he whispered, his voice firm despite the tears streaming down his face. "I'll make this right.
For you.
For everyone." The Nexus pulsed softly in response, its light steady and calm. Kai turned away from the core, ready to face whatever came next. The Nexus stood silent now, its once chaotic hallways calm and steady. The pulsating glow of its walls had softened into a rhythmic, almost soothing hum. Kai walked through its corridors, his footsteps echoing faintly. The air felt different, lighter somehow, as if the building itself had finally found peace after years of instability and corruption. The cost of this peace, however, was etched into Kai's heart. Echo's broken form lay in the core room, its once vibrant energy extinguished. The robot had been more than a companion. It had been his guide, his protector, and in many ways, his only friend. Kai had promised to make things right, but now the responsibility of the Nexus and the multiverse rested solely on his shoulders. As he reached the control chamber once more, the core shimmered with a soft light, its energy stable. The consoles around it glowed with intricate symbols that Kai had come to understand, at least partially, during his frantic efforts to stabilize the building. The Nexus was no longer a chaotic labyrinth. It was a tool, one that could be wielded for good, if used wisely. Kai took a deep breath and began work on examining the stabilized doorways. Each one shimmered with potential, leading to worlds that were vibrant, desolate, or utterly alien. The multiverse was vast, and the possibilities were endless. Kai's settlement, his people, needed a fresh start, a world where they could thrive without fear of void beasts or scarcity. Kai activated the interface, pulling up data on the dimensions connected to the Nexus. Many of them were still unstable, scarred by the same corruption that had plagued his own world. But a few, just a few, glowed with promise. One in particular caught his eye, a world with rolling green fields, abundant water, and no signs of void beast activity. This could be it, Kai muttered, his fingers hovering over the controls. He hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with doubt. Could he really uproot his entire settlement and lead them to a new world? What if something went wrong? What if they brought the Nexus's corruption with them? But then he thought of Echo, of the people back home struggling to survive, and of the promise he had made to himself. He couldn't let fear hold him back. With a determined nod, Kai locked in the coordinates for the promising dimension. The doorway flickered briefly before stabilizing, its frame glowing with a steady light. Beyond it, Kai could see the lush, green landscape waiting for him. He stepped through the portal, his senses overwhelmed by the freshness of the air and the warmth of the sun on his skin. It was real, a world untouched by the ruin that had consumed his own. He turned back to the portal, his heart pounding with hope. Over the next several weeks, Kai worked tirelessly to prepare his settlement for the transition. He returned through the Nexus to share the news, convincing the wary and desperate to follow him. The process was grueling, but one by one, the people of his settlement stepped into the new world, their faces lighting up with awe and relief. The settlement thrived in its new home. The fields were fertile, the rivers clean, and the skies clear. For the first time in years, laughter and joy echoed through the community. But Kai couldn't fully share in their peace. The Nexus still called to him, its shimmering portals a reminder of the vast, fragile multiverse that needed protection. One evening, as the settlement celebrated its newfound prosperity, Kai returned to the Nexus alone. The building was quiet, its corridors glowing faintly in the twilight. He entered the control chamber and stood before the core, the weight of his responsibility settling over him once more. "There's still so much to do," he said, his voice steady. "So many worlds out there that need help just like mine did." The core pulsed softly, as if in agreement. Kai placed his hand on the console, his resolve hardening. He wouldn't let the Nexus's power go to waste. With its doorways stabilized and its secrets partially unraveled, he could use it to bring hope to other dimensions, to undo the damage caused by the void beasts and the corruption. And so, Kai became the Nexus's guardian. He ventured into new worlds, learning their secrets and searching for ways to heal the multiverse. The memories of his journey, and of Echo's sacrifice, stayed with him, guiding him as he walked the fine line between discovery and danger. The Nexus was no longer a source of chaos. It was a beacon of possibility, a testament to resilience and sacrifice. And Kai, its lone protector, carried its light into the endless expanse of reality, determined to make a difference, one world at a time. Thank you for diving into our incredible stories. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures.